James Gunn's Superman has some awesome action scenes, great acting, moments that'll make you cry, and most importantly, it totally gets almost all the characters from the comics. It gives us a really solid take on the Man of Steel. It's an almost perfect movie. Today we're gonna check out everything James Gunn nailed, and also a couple of little things that could have been just a bit better. And don't worry, no spoilers here.
Thank you.
Unless you've been living in a cave this past year, you already know the story. Superman steps into a conflict in the Middle East to stop an invasion where a bunch of innocent people would have died. And Lex Luthor takes the chance to ruin Superman's rep and turn people against him. It's a pretty typical superhero movie setup, since it gives Superman a reason to go up against the Engineer, Ultraman, and even a kaiju all over Metropolis. There's tons of superhero action and fun moments, but at the same time, it also dives into some serious stuff, like how the world reacts every time Superman lifts a finger. Some people hate him because they see him as an outsider who could ruin everything and shouldn't mess with human problems. But others love him because they see him as a good guy who just wants to help. They'd even be willing to risk their lives for Superman. But that doesn't mean the story is heavy, or that it's preaching at you every 5 minutes. It's a super fun movie because it has all the classic elements of James Gunn's filmmaking. There are some really funny jokes, colorful suits, well-rehearsed fight scenes, some long takes, super creative superpower moments, and a speech from Clark's dad that actually got me a little teary-eyed. Plus, the film never feels like a weird mix of tones, like the horrible version of Suicide Squad. The one word that describes this movie is comic booky, because there are touches of soft sci-fi from the Silver Age of comics. There are black holes, pocket universes, and buildings turning into spaceships. Gunn went out of his way to move away from the gritty realism of the Batman, but he didn't go overboard and make everything unbelievable just for the sake of being wild. Sure, there's a scene where Lois is writing an article out loud while piloting a ship, but you buy it because the world is built well. It's nothing like what we've seen in the MCU, the old DCU, or even Nolan's Batman. It's the closest thing we've gotten to a live-action comic straight out of DC's main continuity, keeping in mind the limits of live action. At times, it kind of reminded me of Across the Spider-Verse, just because of how much both movies clearly love the comics and try to bring the comic book vibe to the screen. But what about Superman himself? The cinematography can be top-notch, but if Superman doesn't work as a character, no one's gonna be happy. Gunn aimed to make his Superman kind and smiley, like Christopher Reeves, but also someone who has real human worries and goes through tough stuff, like the Superman from Jeff Loeb or Mark Waid. He's a bit innocent and idealistic and trusts people maybe a little too much, but he's not dumb. He believes in giving second chances and thinks people can change, but he's not a pushover either. He gets mad, he's scared, he fights with his partner, and he even worries about his dog. But at the same time, he knows he has way bigger responsibilities than anyone else on Earth, because he's literally the most powerful being in the world. He's kind of a blend of all the best versions of Superman, and thankfully, not once does he act out of character for the Man of Steel.
The happiest moment of my life.
Corn Sweat totally nailed it. He's got a commanding presence, and when he gets mad, he's actually scary. But then he smiles, and just looks like the nicest guy on the planet. Plus, they did a great job showing the difference between Clark and Superman, so you actually believe they're two separate people. Corn Sweat changes his voice, and even moves differently when he's in and out of costume. It's a shame he only has one scene at the planet, because there we get to see how his body language and whole posture change when he's trying to hide who he is. He even slouches to look less buff, just like an all-star Superman. You could definitely argue if he's on the same level as Christopher Reeve, or maybe even better. But I'll save that for future videos, when I can go into spoiler territory. What I can tell you right now is that Rachel Brosnahan is hands down the best Lois Lane in any Superman movie. She looks exactly like the comic book version, her acting is amazing, and just like Clark, she struggles with social interactions. She's an awesome reporter, but her job consumes her, to the point she even argues with Clark when he doesn't give her the answers she wants in an interview. But most importantly, she has a role in the story beyond just being Superman's love interest. Sure, the romantic subplot is solid. These two have great chemistry and look like they're making out for real. But the best part is that Gunn made Lois way more than just Superman's girlfriend. This Lois isn't just a damsel in distress waiting to be rescued. But she doesn't suddenly turn into a hero or jump in to help the Man of Steel in the final battle, fighting the villains one-on-one with some magic weapon, because that would have felt super forced. Lois actually contributes as a journalist in a subplot that's well put together, really important for the third act, and doesn't feel shoved in just because. It also helps that everyone at the planet is well written and adds something to the story. Perry, Jimmy, even Kat, they're all spot on. Way better than I expected.
I love them.
Another one that really surprised me was Crypto. I'll admit, I was a bit worried he'd pop every 5 minutes to look cute and make people laugh. Everyone loves dogs, so that could have been an easy win to charm the general audience. And sure, he is cute and funny, but he never gets annoying. He acts like a regular dog that just happens to have powers. So even if Clark's half dead, Crypto still wants to play fetch with him, and he's all about chasing balls. Just like Lois and the Daily Planet crew, Crypto actually contributes to the story, even in the final battle. They also did justice to Jonathan Kent. He shows up just a little bit, only in a couple of scenes, scenes, but he has one of the best moments in the whole movie. It makes you want to cry, clap, hug your dad, and thank James Gunn for getting exactly how Superman's dad is supposed to act. But sadly, I can't say the same for Superman's biological parents. No spoilers here, but there's a major twist around Superman's connection to Krypton that plays a big role in the second and third acts. The message they end up giving about what it really means to be Superman is awesome. It's emotional, and the whole arc wraps up nicely. But they changed something from Superman's classic backstory that didn't quite sit right with me. And just like I complained when they wrecked Jonathan in Man of Steel, I've got to call it out if Gunn made Superman's birth parents totally unrecognizable. Luckily, I doubt this will have much effect on the future of the DCU. It probably won't even get brought up again. But if you're a hardcore Superman fan and really liked Jor-El and Lara, you're probably not going to be happy with what they did here. It's a shame because the other characters are really good. It would have been super easy for Gunn to rework Guy Gardner, Mr. Terrific, and Hawkgirl into his new Guardian-style crew, or even give them so much screen time that they ended up overshadowing Superman. We know Gunn's more comfortable writing anti-heroes with sketchy morals who throw out sarcastic one-liners, so Guy was basically made for him. But thankfully, they always stay in supporting roles, and Gunn didn't turn them into clowns. I know Guy has a couple of funny lines, but that's exactly how he is in the comics. Half the time, he's just acting like a jerk.
So he's an idiot.
The important thing is that the Justice Gang doesn't overload the movie or make it feel like a big crossover. This is still a Superman story. Everything revolves around Superman, but other characters show up because it's a shared universe. Nothing more than that. Just like it works in the comics. That said, I'm pretty sure Gunn added these specific characters because he's dying to make a Justice Gang movie. I wouldn't be surprised if he already has the script written and ends up changing the group's name at the end. Kind of like how Marvel did with the Thunderbolts. I don't have proof, but if that ends up happening, you heard it here first. Now, the one who totally crushed it, and maybe even deserves more credit than Corenswet, is Nicholas Hoult as Lex Luthor. He brings in all the traits from Gene Hackman's version. The sexy girlfriends, the goofy sidekicks, and those moments where he's such a jerk, it's actually kind of funny, just because of how much he looks down on everyone. But he's also super evil, wicked smart, calculating, and jealous. He's really evil, and he knows it. There's a scene in the second act where it hits you that he has no limits. He's totally willing to kill men, women, and children just to frame Superman. Lex knows he's not really doing the right thing, but still thinks everything he's doing is for the good of humanity. But unlike Thanos, who at least felt bad when he hurt people, Lex doesn't feel even a shred of guilt. Gunn really went all out, because this is hands down the best villain he's written so far. He even gets one of the best villain speeches in any superhero movie ever. Maybe this will be a little controversial, but Holt is the best Lex Luthor in movie history by a mile. And that's saying something, because I actually like Kevin Spacey's version. But there's just no contest here.
He's evil in a way you've never read about.
Plus, since Lex is the main villain, the movie doesn't feel overloaded with bad guys, like The Amazing Spider-Man 2 did. Ultraman and the Engineer are basically his hired muscle. They don't really get any development. We pretty much don't know anything about their backstories, and we never really connect with them. But it doesn't really matter, because Lex steals the spotlight, and Hoult absolutely nails it. What did leave me a bit underwhelmed was the big reveal about who Ultraman really is. No spoilers here, but it's clear from the start they're hiding something under the mask, and I figured out the twist the second time he showed up. I get that this isn't supposed to be a mystery movie, but the reveal didn't surprise me one bit. Though to be fair, I asked a few people I watched it with if they guessed who Ultraman was, and all of them said no. So maybe I just got lucky because I'm always throwing around wild theories. Wouldn't be the first time. Everything's been pretty solid so far, but what about the effects and fight scenes? I mean, this is a superhero movie we're talking about. Luckily, Gunn knew that just nailing the characters wasn't gonna cut it. If he didn't put Superman into action, people would have zoned out, like with Superman Returns. Here we've got action scenes of all kinds, like the Justice Gang taking on a kaiju right in the middle of Metropolis, or Superman saving a baby in a super weird river. Mr. Terrific has an awesome scene with one of those long takes Gunn loves. All of Guy's constructs look amazing, and I was pleasantly surprised by how they used Metamorpho's powers. But the one who truly shines is Superman. All the fight scenes are really creative, from the flying shots to the heat vision. The angles they used in the flying scenes were pretty bold since they're totally different from anything we'd seen with the character before, but they work really well to show how fast Superman moves. I don't think they're the ultimate version of flight scenes, like what Fox did with Quicksilver's super speed in Days of Future Past, but it's pretty close, and I'm really excited to see how they perfect the flying in the next movies.
I'd like that too.
The super breath is also used really well. I was hoping to see a solid scene with the super hearing in action, but to be fair, there wasn't really a moment in the movie that needed it. And Gunn made up for it with plenty of scenes where Superman's out there saving people. Plus, the effects are pretty much flawless, which deserves a round of applause, especially since almost all the action scenes happen during daytime and in full lighting. If the effects were weak, it would have been super obvious. There were only like 2 shots where it seemed like you could tell there was a green screen. To be honest, I can't really tell if it was green screen or just some weird color grading, but considering how many wild powers were flying around, the visuals were excellent. For example, I'm sure Crypto had to be fully CGI in a bunch of scenes, unless they were actually tossing a real dog around during the action, and he always looked perfect. Aside from one joke that feels lifted straight out of Avengers 1, in the geopolitical conflict that kind of fizzles out by the end, this is one of the best things James Gunn has ever done. He totally stepped away from his usual formula and gave us a comic book style fun movie that really nails the classic values of Superman. But it doesn't feel like a rehash of Richard Donner's version or a response to Snyder's take. It's something new and fresh that still feels classic and respectful. Like if a writer grabbed the wildest ideas from 60s comics and took them just seriously enough to tell a modern story. It's probably the best Superman movie. It has the best villain, the best Lois Lane, and if Corrin Sweat's not the best Superman ever, it's almost the best Superman. But that doesn't mean everyone's gonna love it.
Why not?
I like the comic book vibe because I love superhero comics. But if you're looking for something totally serious, realistic, or with that usual dull color filter Marvel loves, then this won't be for you. Superman isn't ashamed to be a superhero movie. It doesn't distance itself from comics, and it doesn't try to explain every little thing with fake movie science. But if you like the Man of Steel or enjoy superhero adventures in general, you're definitely gonna have a good time. Maybe you think Margot Kidder was a better Lois Lane than Rachel Brosnahan, and that's okay. Everyone has the right to be wrong. But I'm sure you're gonna get excited watching Superman just being Superman and seeing how he uses his powers with the same kind of creativity as in the comics. I truly hope the fandom can finally come together after this movie and that we stop fighting over silly stuff. But it's not going to be easy because we've had over 10 years of arguments about what should happen with Superman on the big screen. I explain how the DC fandom split in 2 in this video.
Bye.